All right, ready to dive into another battle?
Always. Especially this one.
This time, we're tackling Custer's last stand at the Battle of Little Bighorn.
One of those moments in history that just grabs you.
Definitely. And we're lucky enough to have a first-hand account to guide us.
Oh, yeah. This is good stuff. We've got Edward Settle Godfrey Jr.'s account.
He was a cavalryman right there in the thick of it.
And get this, he wasn't actually with Custer during the main attack.
So he's seeing everything unfold from a different angle. That's got to be valuable.
Well, it really is. He was with Major Reno's forces. Gives us a whole new perspective.
Like getting a peek behind the curtain, one thing that really struck me was how uneasy Reno's officers seemed.
Oh, yeah. You can practically feel the tension building as they watch Custer making his moves.
Like they knew something was off.
One of them, Captain Moylan, even said something like, "Gentlemen, Custer's just made the biggest mistake of his life."
Whoa, talk about a premonition. And to think all this is before the battle even really starts.
It's setting the stage for a disaster. And then, of course, there's that whole mystery of Custer's last orders.
That message sent by Trumpeter Martin, right?
The one that goes, "Benteen, come on, big village, be quick, bring packs."
It's chilling, especially that repeated "bring packs."
Like a sudden realization of just how bad things were about to get.
It's easy to forget there are real people behind these historical events.
Moments like this bring it all back. You can almost hear the urgency in Custer's voice.
Absolutely. And while all this is happening, Godfrey's watching Custer's battalion disappear over the hills.
Cheering and waving, no less. Talk about a contrast with the impending doom.
It's like the calm before the storm, so Custer's gone. What happens to Reno and his men?
Things go south pretty fast.
Yeah.
Godfrey describes a chaotic retreat from the valley.
Lots of casualties.
Heavy losses, total disarray. It's clear Reno's struggling to keep control.
Must have been terrifying. All the while, they're wondering what's happening to Custer.
Right. And then they start hearing these distinct volleys of gunfire coming from Custer's direction.
What did they think it was?
Godfrey was convinced those were signals, distress signals from Custer, trying to show them his location.
So they're hearing their comrades desperately calling for help, knowing they can't reach them.
Imagine that feeling. Some of them try to move towards the sound, driven by concern.
Captain Weir and Lieutenant Edgerly, right? Trying to get to Custer.
Brave guys.
Yeah.
But they ran into heavy resistance from the Native Americans.
They couldn't break through.
No. And during that attempt, they saw something that really shook them.
What was it?
Indians desecrating bodies on what they later realized was Custer's battlefield.
Oh, man. That's tough. So what happened to them? Did they manage to get away?
They got pushed back and ended up trapped on a hilltop with Reno's troops.
The start of a whole other nightmare.
It was a full-blown siege. Godfrey talks about a night of constant attacks, terrifying sounds.
The whoops and yells, the cries of the wounded.
Exactly. He even describes hearing what he called demoniacal screams and seeing scalp dances.
I can't even imagine. To be surrounded like that with no escape.
And on top of everything else, the thirst was a huge problem.
He talks about that, yeah. Chewing on pebbles, digging up grass roots.
Anything for a drop of moisture. They even tried to get water from a nearby creek, but it was incredibly dangerous.
Under constant fire. Amazing how something as basic as water becomes so crucial in that situation.
Absolutely. Did they ever make it out?
They did, but not by their own doing.
The cavalry arrived.
General Terry's troops showed up after 2 long days and nights, but with their arrival came the confirmation of what they already feared.
Custer's defeat.
Relief and heartbreak all at once. They survived, but at a heavy cost.
A stark reminder of the realities of war. And it's in the aftermath that Godfrey starts to really grapple with what led to that devastating defeat.
And what does he have to say about it?
Well, he's got some pretty strong opinions, especially about Major Reno's leadership.
Ooh, that's what I want to hear. We'll have to dive into that in the next part.
Back again, ready for more on Godfrey's perspective.
Absolutely. We left off with his thoughts on Major Reno's leadership, right?
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. He points to Reno's retreat from the valley as a major turning point.
That was a big moment for sure. What does Godfrey say about it?
Well, he knew a lot about Native American battle tactics, and he says they had actually planned to retreat themselves if Reno had held his ground.
So Reno retreating actually messed up their plan.
You could say that. He gave them a chance to regroup and focus on Custer. A huge what if.
If Reno had just stood his ground, the whole battle could have been different.
That's what Godfrey suggests, yeah. He thinks Reno's fear, his lack of confidence, emboldened the Native Americans, gave them an edge they weren't expecting.
It's like he accidentally helped them out.
Right. And Godfrey doesn't just criticize the retreat itself, he questions Reno's whole approach to the battle.
What does he say?
He describes him as hesitant, indecisive, even uses the term moral cowardice at one point.
Ouch. That's pretty harsh.
It is. He felt Reno just wasn't cut out to lead in that kind of pressure cooker.
And remember, Godfrey was right there with him, witnessing it all.
He wasn't just theorizing, he was living it. So Reno's leadership was a big issue. But did Godfrey mention anything else that contributed to the defeat?
I'm curious, what else did he notice?
This one might surprise you. He talks about problems with the carbines, the guns used by the 7th Cavalry.
What kind of problems?
He specifically mentions difficulties extracting spent cartridges, especially if they were dirty or corroded.
So their guns were jamming.
Yeah, basically. Now imagine that. You're in the middle of this intense battle, enemies all around you, and your gun fails.
Must have been terrifying. And frustrating.
Exactly. And Godfrey says it wasn't just a few isolated cases, it seemed to be pretty widespread.
So on top of everything else, they had unreliable weapons.
It adds another layer of complexity to the whole thing. Makes you wonder if better functioning guns could have changed the outcome.
It's a chilling thought. All those little details adding up.
That's history for you. So many factors at play.
Okay, so Reno's actions and the guns themselves. What about Custer? Did he disobey orders? Was he going rogue or following General Terry's plan?
Well, it seems like Custer was given a lot of freedom in how he carried out the mission.
Like he was in charge.
Pretty much. Godfrey points out that General Terry wasn't as experienced in Indian warfare, so he basically let Custer make the decisions on the ground.
That's a lot of trust.
It was. Now, whether that was the right call, that's debatable. Godfrey doesn't criticize Terry directly, but he does say it was a key factor in the events that unfolded.
Too much freedom for Custer.
Maybe so. Leads us to another question. Were there any myths or misconceptions about the battle that Godfrey tried to clear up?
I'm all ears. What did he want to set straight?
Well, there was this rumor about the troops being drunk, especially those under Custer.
Oh yeah, I've heard that one.
But Godfrey, who is a very observant guy, says it's not true. He describes Custer as utterly abstemious, meaning he didn't drink alcohol at all.
Putting those rumors to rest.
He wanted to present the facts as he saw them, even if it meant challenging the popular version of the story.
Sticking to his truth. Speaking of truth, what about Reno and Custer? Could Reno have saved Custer's command? Was there anything he could have done differently?
Godfrey's pretty clear on this one. He doesn't think Reno could have saved Custer, even if he'd tried.
Wow, that's blunt.
He is. He says the Native American forces were just too strong, and Reno's troops were in such chaos it would have been pointless, probably led to even more losses.
He's not holding back.
Nope. Honesty was his thing.
Okay, so we've got the battle itself, the critiques of Reno, the problems with the carbines. It's a lot to take in.
It is a really complex event, but just when you think you've got a handle on it, Godfrey throws in a curveball.
Oh, what's that?
Remember how we were talking about all the theories and mysteries surrounding the battle? Well, Godfrey found something that suggests there might have been a survivor from Custer's last stand.
Wait, what? A survivor? A survivor? I thought everyone with Custer died. What did Godfrey find?
He found a horse, shot in the head, and nearby a carbine and a grain sack, the kind the 7th Cavalry used.
Okay, but lots of soldiers had those things. Why does he think this is special?
This wasn't just anywhere on the battlefield, it was near the river.
So someone might have gotten away, made it that far? Is that what he's saying?
He thinks it's possible. A soldier, separated from his unit, maybe he evaded the Native Americans, got to the river, could have killed his horse for food, then used the saddle straps to make a raft to float downriver.
Wow, that's a long shot. But I guess it's not impossible.
No, it's not. And it makes you think, right? What if there are other stories from that day that we just don't know about?
Stories that are lost to time.
Exactly. We tend to focus on the big picture, the famous names, the battles themselves. But history is full of these individual stories, most of which we'll never know.
Like that soldier maybe making his way down the river all alone. It reminds you there's a human side to these events.
For sure. Godfrey's account really drives that home. And it makes you question things, challenge the assumptions we often have about history.
Like his criticism of Reno, for example. That must have been a controversial thing to say back then.
It was. But he was very clear about what he thought of Reno's actions, or in some cases his inaction, believed it played a big role in the defeat. And he didn't shy away from saying so.
Even if it made people uncomfortable. Reminds you that history isn't always simple, there are nuances.
Exactly. And that's why these firsthand accounts are so important, that give us a more complete picture, a deeper understanding.
So we've got the battle, the critiques of Reno, the problems with the guns, and now this possible survivor. What does all of this tell us about Little Bighorn, about its place in history?
I think it highlights just how complex the whole event was. Little Bighorn wasn't just a Native American victory. It was the result of so much that came before. Broken treaties, forced removals, years of conflict between the U.S. government and the tribes. A real tragedy.
And it's a story that's been told and retold so many times, but Godfrey's account makes you really feel it. The fear, the desperation, the loss on both sides.
For sure. It's a reminder that history is about people, about their choices and the consequences that follow.
Choices that can echo through time, as we see in Godfrey's story.
Definitely. His account also highlights the importance of things like strong leadership, clear communication, even the technology used in warfare. Those themes are just as relevant today as they were back then.
It's amazing how a single event can be so layered, have so much meaning, and how someone like Godfrey can bring those layers to life for us.
It's like he's giving us a glimpse into this key moment in history, a moment that continues to intrigue us even now.
And that takes us back to that idea of a possible survivor. What if he did make it out? What happened to him? How would his story have changed our understanding of Little Bighorn?
Those are the questions, aren't they? We may never know for sure. But even the possibility is fascinating. It adds another dimension to this already captivating story.
There's always more to learn, more to discover. History is never truly finished.
And that's why we keep digging. We keep asking questions, keep searching for those untold stories, those new perspectives.
That's what it's all about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.